This is extremely urgent. Republicans are days away from shutting down the government, and Democrats look completely lost. So, as you know, Democrats have been struggling to find their identity since the last presidential election, and this government shutdown seems like a make or break opportunity. Voters have been extremely upset with how the party has responded to different scenarios, and it now falls on the leaders of the party, like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and even Kamala Harris, who was the candidate for president during the 2024 election, to respond, to show how this government shutdown is going to be different. So let's take it as a case study to see if they are responding properly, starting with Chuck Schumer.
Republicans have the majority. They seem to be headed for one, but we hope and pray that they will now see that the only way to avoid a shutdown is negotiate with Democrats, which is how we've always done it.
So Chuck Schumer is hoping and praying that Republicans will act in good faith and negotiate with Democrats. As a matter of fact, they had an opportunity to speak with Trump. They had a meeting scheduled, and let's see how that went. Trump cancels meeting with Schumer and Jeffries. The president was due to meet with the Democratic leaders on Thursday. So tell me in the comments, do you think that Trump was ever actually going to meet with the Democrats? It seems to me like he was just taking this as an opportunity to big league them. And why wouldn't he? He doesn't need to negotiate with the Democrats to get what he wants. The government shuts down. Guess what? He gets to remain in power. He gets to keep doing the things that he wants. He gets even more control. The government doesn't shut down. Well, that's because more than likely a bill that he supported to keep the government funded goes through. So then the question falls on Hakeem or on Chuck Schumer. What will you do in the scenario where the government does shut down and this bill comes across your desk?
If nothing changes, are you going to vote no and urge your Democratic colleagues to vote no, which will end with the shutdown?
Look, we hope it doesn't come to that.
But what if it does?
Because everyone knows the American people are on our side, Dana. By almost 2-1, they believe if there's a shutdown, it's going to be caused by Trump.
All right, so let's pause it right there. Let's pay close attention to what Chuck Schumer is saying here. He's saying the American people are on our side. By 2-1, they know that if the government does shut down, then that is going to be Trump's fault. So presumably, the thought process would be that if there is a bill that stops the government from shutting down, but it's only a bill that has what the Republicans want in it, that you would vote no, right? Well, let's take a look at what he says to that exact question.
It's going to be caused by Trump because they know how much they want relief in the health care issue, and they know he's not negotiating. So it's up to them, and I hope and pray that Trump will sit down with us and negotiate a bipartisan bill. That's how it's always been done in the past. That's how shutdowns have been avoided in the past.
And if he doesn't, I'm just confirming here, you will vote no. Is that correct?
We are hoping, Dana.
All right, let's pause it again. So he's saying we're hoping that he will negotiate with us. We know that he didn't negotiate with you, Chuck. So what are you going to do? Right now, it sounds like you're saying that you might vote for what the president wants. And Dana Bash does a great job actually following up here. Take a look.
We are hoping that he will negotiate with us.
And if he
so
doesn't?
far, he hasn't. And we've had 2 bills in the House and Senate, and neither of them have passed. Our Democrats are firm. We need to get something done to relieve the distress the American people are in.
Okay, that sounded like a yes, but you can confirm that, and then I want to move on. Is that accurate?
The bottom line is we must
Okay.
get a better bill than what they have.
The
plain
last
and
time-
Oh, wow. Yeah, this does not look great. And you remember something similar happened back in March. The exact same situation, as a matter of fact. The government was going to shut down, and Chuck Schumer was saying that I will not vote to keep the government open if it means passing Trump's spending bill or Trump-supported spending bill. And then at the last minute, he flip-flopped, he switched, and he actually voted yes on Trump's spending bill. So at least here, I guess he's being a little bit more honest in saying that, you know what, I actually might just vote yes this time to keep the government open. it's not looking like a good situation. And that's why Chuck Schumer's popularity in his own state of New York is at 16% right now. So it looks like if our faith lies in Chuck Schumer to do something, we might not be very optimistic, right? But that still leaves a lot of other Democrats that we can fall back on. That still leaves Hakeem Jeffries. That still leaves Kamala Harris. So let's take a look at what Hakeem thinks about the fact that, well, leaders in the Democratic Party aren't very popular right now, particularly Chuck Schumer, as I just mentioned.
62% of the Democrats want to see the leadership of your party replaced. Do these sorts of polls make you rethink your approach at all? How do you view this?
Well, I think I understand why people all across the country, not just Democrats, are disturbed by what has been happening in this country and the extremism that has been unleashed.
So let's pay close attention to what Hakeem Jeffries is saying there. He's using the word extremism in a very careful way. He's trying to frame an argument, and I'm sure that many of you caught on to what he's doing here. He's saying that the people are against extremism on both sides. They don't want figures like Donald Trump and what he's doing with his authoritarian fascist government, but they also don't want individuals like Zohran Mamdani. So what do they want? Well, they want me, Dana Bash. They want me, the great Hakeem Jeffries, the only one that can lead the party forward, even though I failed to do so in 2022 and 2020 and 2024. I'm failing to do so now. It doesn't matter. What they want is me. I'm sorry to tell you this, Hakeem Jeffries, but it seems like both you and Chuck Schumer are not what the American people and Democratic voters want right now. Let's take a look at this other article saying that Democratic anger at their own party fuels 2026 primaries. There was a recent poll that came out earlier this month that found that the Democratic Party had a 34% favorable rating and 53% unfavorable rating. The poll found that just 69% of Democrats saw their party favorably, while 27% registered an unfavorable view. That's a quarter of your party that does not think that the party is good. That indicates that it's not about extremism. It indicates that the status quo is what's upsetting people. At least that's what the voters are saying. And last time I checked, politicians should be responding to what their voters want and not to what their consultants are saying. Because that's the through line here between why Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are answering these questions the way that they are. They're focusing on what their consultants are telling them. Chuck Schumer, with the 2-to-1, 2-to-1 Americans believe that the shutdown is going to be on Trump. But even if the shutdown is on Trump, I'm still going to vote for whatever Trump wants. And then Hakeem Jeffries using this extremism argument to try to blame both sides of the political spectrum for what's going on right now, when it really does just seem like people are unhappy with him. So Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they're out of the question. We can't have a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to lead the Democratic Party forward, but that does give us Kamala Harris, right? The presidential nominee. Even though she lost, there's still a lot of weight that she holds within the party. So what is she doing? It looks like she might be promoting a book that she just wrote about the election that she lost. And I don't think that that is really what voters want to see. At least that's not what I want to see, right? You spent the entire election telling us that if Donald Trump came into power, this is fascism. This is the end of democracy. America, the project, the great experiment, it's over. And the only way to prevent that is by electing me, Kamala Harris. Well, you lost. And, I guess the idea would be that you would be on the front lines in this fight against fascism. But I guess it makes sense. Maybe she's recovering from this loss. She wrote this book. She's taking the time to, gather her thoughts. And as long as she's on the sidelines cheerleading for, the future of the Democratic Party and the superstars that are rising within it, then you know what? Maybe that's all that we can ask from her. So let's see if she's doing that. Rachel Maddow asked her how she feels about some of the rising figures within the party.
Arguably the fastest rising star right now in Democratic politics is Zohran Mamdani, who is going to be elected mayor of New York City, and probably in a landslide, if the polls are anything to go by. Lots of mainline Democrats have been very shy about his candidacy. They seem somewhat flummoxed by his success. As a sort of talent spotter in the Democratic Party, what do you think of him and his candidacy? And what do you think of mainline Democratic shyness and agitation about the prospect that he's going to win?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, he's the Democratic nominee and he should be supported.
Do you endorse his candidacy?
I support the Democrat in the race. Sure.
Yeah, and I think that that's not the answer that a lot of people want to be hearing, right? As far as I'm concerned, he's the Democratic candidate and I support him. No, it goes back to even when he won and a lot of people crediting his social media strategy. The reality is that it looks like his policy and his ability to connect with people, whether that's on social media or in person, is what makes him so popular. And it's not doing book tours, it's doing scavenger hunts for the community, or it's going out and walking across all 5 boroughs. It's community engagement that highlights the people within that community, not the supposed leaders of the party who lost an election. And you know what? It's not just me that's thinking this. You're thinking it as well. Americans across the country are thinking it as well. That's why Kamala Harris joins her brothers in Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in falling in favorability. Let's take a look at this poll showing who some of the favorites were for the Democratic nominee in 2028. As you can see, following the election, logically, Kamala Harris was up there. She was the favorite to be the next candidate in 2028 to run it again, right? Run it back. And as you can see, as time has passed, and particularly recently, this favorability took a dip. It's not good for her because people don't support actions like these. They seem inauthentic. Going on a book tour while people are being kidnapped off the streets by people with masks and unmarked vehicles is not a good look. And then, backing up Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer instead of the person who is gaining favorability across the country in Zohran Mamdani is not a good look. So it's easy to see why none of them are popular. But honestly, it's not just about these individuals. It's about the establishment of the Democratic Party. And I think nothing shows that better than what's happening in California. You're not going to believe this. Nancy Pelosi is going to lose her election. Her 39-year-old primary competitor gains momentum in the latest poll. Activist Shoykat Shaktabari is taking on Nancy Pelosi. And it looks like he might win. He might do what Zohran did and upset the establishment. Let's take a look at some of the numbers here. 51% of respondents report that they once supported Representative Pelosi, but it's time for a change. That's the same thing that Hakeem Jeffries was responding to. That's the same thing that Chuck Schumer's polling indicates. That's the echoes that are being heard from the polling that we saw of of Kamala Harris's favorability in terms of being the candidate in 2028. The establishment is weak. The establishment is not favorable. The establishment needs to be concerned. It's not just the American people. It's not just Nancy Pelosi's constituents or Chuck Schumer's constituents or Democratic voters. The Democratic nominees now, they're seeing objecting to the party as a pathway to victory. Take a look at what's happening in Michigan right now. The Senate candidate there, Mallory McMorrow, defies Senator Chuck Schumer. This is very interesting. Let's look at a quote from this article by NBC News. When Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow decided in February that she wanted to run for an open U.S. Senate seat, she conveyed her intentions to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, the DSCC. But the committee asked her to hold off, according to 3 sources familiar with the conversations. In early April, McMorrow defied their wishes and launched her campaign, inveighing against the same old crap in Washington. What a quote right there. The same old crap in Washington, and highlighting polls that showed the Democratic Party's approval rating at an all-time low. McMorrow's paying attention as well. Everyone is noticing this. The Democratic Party's approval ratings are at an all-time low. And it's not because of McMurrow. It's not because of Zohran. It's not because of what the establishment wants you to think. It's because of the establishment. But with that being said, if you like this video, be sure to give it a like. And if you appreciate what the channel is doing and highlighting stories like this, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the month. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video.